Hey, Saj Hussain here. A couple of days ago, I was speaking to one of my mentees about Sui Generis HMOs, and I thought it may be really useful to do a video around what they are and how to find them. So, what is Sui Generis HMO? Well, first of all, let me explain different planning classifications before I talk about Sui Generis. So when we're talking about HMOs specifically, we'll have different planning categories. A family house, a bog standard family house, is what's called a C3 planning classification. So that's a normal dwelling for a family. Now, when we convert that to, say, a 6-person HMO, then its planning classification changes to C4. So C4 would be a 6-person HMO that quite often we would create. That's a licensed house. Now, when we talk about licensing and planning, they're two very different things. In this video, I'm focusing on planning and the different planning classifications. But when we go beyond 6 people in a house, actually it moves into a different category. It's called Sui Generis. Sui Generis effectively is a Latin term that means it's something that goes into a category of its own. It's a separate classification. So there's other properties that can be classed as sui generis, but right now we're talking specifically around HMOs. So once a property goes beyond 6 people in terms of number of people living in the property, then it gets classed as a sui generis HMO. Now, the thing is, you can't just take a family house, C3, and create, say, a 7 or 8 person HMO. If you were going to create, say, a 6-person HMO, which is the common thing many people tend to do within the property industry when they're doing HMOs, they move from C3 to C4. The reason they'll move up to 6 people only is because quite often it's permitted development. It means you are allowed to move from one planning category to the other without any planning permission requirement because it's permitted development is already allowed. Now, unless you're in an Article 4 area, then this doesn't apply. In an Article 4 area, what's happened is the local authorities have been empowered to be able to remove the permitted development rights that properties have. Now, there's many different permitted development rights that are on properties, being able to do various things that you can do. This is just one category that we're speaking about. So in Article 4 areas, what happens? The local council removes the ability for you to be able to move from C3 to C4 because they want to control the number of HMOs in the area. They don't want you to just create them whenever you want. So for example, where I am in Birmingham, around the university, that's an Article 4 area because the council wants to control studentification of those areas. Because I'm sure you've seen streets where you see streets of pure student houses, and there's very few family houses there. And the council are trying to control all of this, and that's where Article 4 areas are usually found, where the council want to control. So in Birmingham, as I said, generally speaking, we don't have Article 4. So we can move freely from C3 to C4. So I can take a standard house, a little bit like the one I'm in here now, where I'm just doing this filming, and we can convert this to a 6-bedroom, 6-person house, and neither of the neighbours across the road on the side can object or complain really about that. Now, just to be clear, I tend to create really nice, high-quality houses. You may have seen some of my other videos. If not, either put a comment in, or put a link in, or have a look for that video. Now, when we're creating these high-quality homes for 6 people, 6 professionals to live in, the reason we might want to go to, say, 7 or 8, or even more, it may be because it's a bigger property and we want to squeeze more rooms out of that property. Decent sized rooms, good quality accommodation. Sometimes it may be you want to, say, have 1 couple in a room. It might still be a 6-bedroom house, but if you have 1 couple, now you have 7 people. Now, from a licensing point of view, as I said, that's quite different. You'll still be able to get your licensing as long as it's all fully compliant. But in fact, you need to go through planning approval now to get permission to be able to have 7 occupants in that house. So now you're moving from C4, which is a 6-person house, into this sui generis classification. So what are the reasons we would go and do sui generis into that category? Well, one of the reasons, as I said, it might be it's a bigger house, we just want to get more people into it, and as you have more people in the house, your costs don't increase as much as you have more people, effectively meaning you have more profit. So a 7-bedroom house will be much more profitable than, say, a 5-bedroom house, because your costs of running that property tend to be absorbed in the first 2 or 3 rooms, and the rest of it becomes profit. Another reason that sui generis classification is something that a lot of investors want to try and do and get that classification for their properties is because they can obtain a commercial valuation for lending purposes. So what I mean by that is treat it as a separate property rather than say the one of its neighbouring properties. So when it comes to valuation purposes, they don't treat it as a bricks and mortar valuation. They tend to give it a commercial valuation because it's now in a separate planning category. So that's the reasons why you find that people want to move into sui generis classification. That's essentially what they are. So in terms of how you do that, well, really you make a planning application to the council when you're creating the property. If you're in a non-Article 4 area, you require a standard family house, you move to C4, which is 6 people, that's no problem. You can do that without planning permission. But if you want to say have 7 people, you can't go from C3 to sui generis without a planning application because there's no permitted development. Permitted development only exists from here to here. So when you're making an application to say take a family house like this one and let's say have 7 occupants in here, then you put in a new planning application that goes to your planning office. Your neighbours are notified as well, and it's a pretty good chance your neighbours are not going to be thrilled to bits that they're going to have 7 people living in a HMO, because HMOs quite often have negative connotations, in my opinion, wrongly, because there's a lot of very good quality accommodation. We manage nearly 500 rooms around Birmingham in our HMO letting agency, and I can tell you we have some very good quality accommodation. So the perception is that HMOs tend to be poor quality, low grade accommodation. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist. Some of those properties do exist. But this day and age, there's a lot of very good quality accommodation that people will pay quite high prices for. So our rooms tend to range from say £300 to £800 a month. That's the range. The average is about £400 to £500 typically that people are paying. So they expect good quality accommodation. But when you make an application to the council, it's very likely your neighbours are not going to be excited about it and the planning office are not going to be thrilled either, particularly if it's Birmingham. They tend not to be too supportive of planning applications that come in from here to here. Generally speaking, this is. So the way you can do this and make this a little bit easier and a little bit more palatable is what you do. You first of all, you create the C4. You go from C3 to C4, you create the 6-person HMO. That's done the permitted development, no planning permission required. Once it's up and running, your neighbours can't object, they can see what's going on. In fact, I'd encourage you and invite your neighbours round to show the property, particularly, if you're doing nice quality properties, so they can see what you're doing, so they don't have this fear of the unknown, as it were. Then what you can do, you make a planning application for a change of use of a property from C4 to sui generis by changing it from a 6-person to 7-person. You're not making any modification to the property. All the work is already done. All you're doing is getting permission to have 1 more person live in that property. Now, when that planning application goes in, it's a much more of a smaller change. There's no up in arms about there's going to be a HMO on this street. It's already there. It's up and running. All you're doing is asking for permission for 1 more person to be able to occupy that property. And that moves into this category and all the benefits we talked about of why you might want to put it into sui generis classification in the first place. So that tends to be much more palatable and much more easy way to it. There's no guarantee that it will work every time, but I find in my experience it's a much easier way of doing it. So look, I hope you find this useful. I know it's a little bit technical. It's not for somebody that may be just getting started, but hopefully this is useful for you. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer those. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.